What if everything you thought you knew about Earth was just the surface? You wake up every day on a planet spinning at 1,000 miles per hour, orbiting a fiery star at 67,000 miles per hour, and yet you barely feel a thing. But behind this peaceful illusion lies something far more chaotic, unpredictable, and downright bizarre. Earth isn't just a rock in space. It's a ticking mystery box of hidden oceans, vanishing magnetic fields, ancient civilizations erased from memory, and cosmic forces pulling the strings from far beyond our atmosphere. This isn't your typical schoolbook planet. The Earth has secrets, ones that scientists whisper about in closed circles, and others they can't explain at all. From strange structures buried under the ice of Antarctica to unexplained sounds echoing from the deepest parts of the ocean, this planet is full of anomalies no one has truly unraveled. And the deeper you dig, the weirder it gets. Why does Earth seem to go through mass extinctions every few million years? Why are there magnetic reversals happening that could one day fry our satellites? And what's the deal with those massive, mysterious blobs hidden deep inside the Earth's mantle? Are they natural, or something else entirely? Even our moon, that familiar object in the night sky, might not be what we think. Some scientists now believe it wasn't even born here. Others say it may be influencing Earth in ways we don't fully understand. So buckle up, because over the next few minutes we're diving headfirst into the most bizarre, unexplained, and mind-blowing secrets of our own planet. And trust me, once you learn what's really going on beneath your feet, you'll never look at Earth the same way again. Let's start with one of the strangest, most controversial theories ever tied to our planet. The idea that Earth might not be solid all the way through. Now, we're not talking about just caves or magma chambers here. We're talking about the full-blown hollow Earth theory. Sounds insane, right? But here's the thing. This theory didn't start on YouTube conspiracy channels. It dates back centuries and has been tied to explorers, scientists, even military missions. And what's even stranger is the number of coincidences and unexplained reports that keep it alive. In the early 1900s, several polar expeditions reported anomalies near the North and South Poles, including strange magnetic behavior, shifting compass readings, and in one case, a so-called warm wind blowing from inside the ice. That's not supposed to happen, and one name keeps popping up when this theory is discussed: Admiral Richard E. Byrd. Admiral Byrd was a decorated American naval officer, an explorer who famously led expeditions to the poles. But in his later years, rumours swirled that he had experienced something off the record, something involving a land beyond the poles, as he allegedly wrote in a personal diary that was mysteriously never published through official government channels. According to conspiracy theorists, this land wasn't on any map, and Byrd supposedly described flying over lush green valleys, not ice. Sound made up? Maybe. But it left enough of a mark to spark decades of speculation. The theory goes like this. Earth isn't just a solid ball of rock and molten metal. Instead, it has vast hollow regions inside. Some say a whole ecosystem exists within. These internal areas, often said to be accessible through openings at the poles, are rumoured to be home to advanced civilizations, unknown species, and even lost relics from Earth's ancient past. In short, think Journey to the Centre of the Earth. But what if it wasn't just fiction? Skeptics, of course, argue that this is pseudoscience at best and outright fantasy at worst, and they have a point. Mainstream geology confirms that the Earth has layers: the crust, mantle, outer core, and inner core, and we've even detected seismic waves passing through them during earthquakes. But here's where things get weird again. While seismic data confirms that something is there, it doesn't explain some anomalies, like low-velocity zones, areas of unexpected heat, and giant mysterious blobs deep within the mantle that seem to absorb seismic waves rather than reflect them. In fact, scientists have found two massive continent-sized structures sitting atop Earth's core. These blobs, officially called Large Low Shear Velocity Provinces, LLSVPs, are unlike anything else on the planet. One is beneath Africa and the other under the Pacific Ocean. They're hotter than surrounding rock, incredibly dense, and we still don't really know what they are or how they formed. Some researchers even speculate they could be remnants of ancient planet-sized collisions, possibly even from Theia, the planet that allegedly crashed into Earth to form the Moon. But others whisper, what if they're not natural at all? And then there's the issue of inner Earth heat. despite Earth's core being hotter than the surface of the Sun, that heat isn't evenly distributed. There are hotspots that seem to defy logic, like under Yellowstone or Iceland. Some have proposed that these regions are powered not just by radioactive decay, but by something else. Could an unknown heat source, even a small molten sun, be at the centre of the Earth? It sounds like science fiction, but the hollow Earth theory insists that's exactly the case. And if you think that's far-fetched, consider this. Even today, we haven't dug deeper than 7.5 miles into the Earth's crust. That's the Kola Superdeep borehole in Russia. The planet is nearly 8,000 miles wide. That means humanity has barely scratched the surface. Literally. Then there's the magnetic mystery. Earth's magnetic field isn't fixed. It shifts, wobbles, and even reverses every few 100,000 years. But there are periods where the field weakens dramatically, as it's doing right now. In fact, the South Atlantic anomaly, an area where Earth's magnetic field is dangerously weak, is growing. Some scientists worry this is a sign that a pole reversal is coming, but others question whether something inside Earth is interfering with the field, something we don't fully understand. Adding to the intrigue are stories from ancient cultures that describe underground cities and worlds beneath the surface. The ancient Greeks spoke of Hades. The Hindus described Patala, a vast subterranean realm. Native American legends tell of beings who retreated into the earth after a great catastrophe. And in Tibet there's the legend of Agartha, a hidden, advanced society that exists within the earth, completely cut off from the surface world. Are these just metaphors for death and the afterlife? Or are they remnants of something that was once taken seriously? Here's where modern tech adds a twist. Satellite scans have shown anomalies under Antarctica, massive geometric structures buried under miles of ice. Some believe these are just natural formations. Others aren't so sure. Combine that with restricted areas, missing explorer logs, and governments refusing to release full polar data, and you start to wonder, what are they hiding? Even NASA got dragged into the hollow Earth conversation, when images of the poles appear to show dark circular spots, openings, malfunctions, lens flares. NASA never gave a clear answer, fueling even more speculation. And while there's no mainstream evidence proving any of this is true, it's the lack of transparency that keeps people interested. The idea that governments or scientific institutions might be hiding something massive has always captured the public imagination. Of course, most scientists dismiss hollow Earth theories outright. There's no peer-reviewed support for a giant inner world, and they argue that gravity alone would make such a structure impossible. But here's the thing. People aren't looking to hollow Earth for geology. They're looking for answers to questions that traditional science hasn't fully answered. Strange magnetic fields, unexplained tremors, vanishing aircraft near the poles. Ancient myths that sound a little too consistent across civilizations that never communicated with each other. So maybe the Earth isn't hollow, but maybe, just maybe, there's something going on beneath our feet that we haven't even begun to understand. And the people who believe in hollow Earth, they're not just clinging to fantasy. They're pointing out the blind spots in what we think we know. But the mystery doesn't end there. Because if the hollow Earth theory is just the beginning, what about the theory that Earth itself might not be what it seems at all? What if ancient civilizations knew more about the Earth than we give them credit for? What if, long before satellites and GPS, maps existed that showed things modern science didn't discover until centuries later? Sounds impossible, right? But here's where it gets interesting, because a series of ancient maps, documents, and artifacts suggest exactly that. And the details are so accurate, so specific, that many researchers and historians have been left scratching their heads. Let's start with the infamous Piri Reis map, one of the most controversial historical artifacts ever found. Drawn in 1513 by Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis, this map isn't just impressive for its age, it's shocking because it appears to depict the coast of Antarctica before it was covered in ice. That's right. The map shows what looks like the Queen Maud Land region of Antarctica ice-free, a condition it hasn't seen in at least 6,000 years, according to modern geological studies. Even more confusing, Antarctica wasn't officially discovered until 1820, more than 300 years after the map was drawn. Now, Piri Reis himself claimed that he based his work on older source maps, some dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. These earlier maps are lost to history, but their existence raises a huge question. How did ancient mapmakers know what the southernmost parts of the Earth looked like under the ice? Skeptics have tried to explain it away, arguing it's a coincidence or a misinterpretation. But here's where things spiral deeper. The Piri Reis map isn't the only one. The Orance-Finet map of 1531 also appears to depict a detailed Antarctic coastline. Then there's the Buache map, created in 1737, which shows Antarctica divided into two landmasses, something that wasn't confirmed until the use of modern sonar imaging in the late 20th century. That's right. Ancient maps depicted land contours beneath ice sheets using data we didn't have until hundreds of years later. So how could this be possible? One theory suggests that an ancient advanced civilization, possibly predating the last ice age, had explored or even lived in Antarctica during a time when it was free from ice. This theory ties closely to the lost city of Atlantis, a legendary civilization first described by Plato over 2,000 years ago. Plato claimed that Atlantis was a technologically advanced society that existed 9,000 years before his time and disappeared in a single day and night of catastrophe. Mainstream historians say it was a philosophical metaphor, but others? They think he was describing something real. Here's the twist. If Antarctica was once home to a thriving, ice-free civilization, it would explain the maps. It would explain why multiple ancient cultures had strangely accurate global knowledge. And it would blow the lid off what we think we know about early human history. And this isn't just about maps. Across the world, ancient megalithic structures, from Egypt to Peru to Turkey, contain celestial alignments, earthquake-proof engineering, and precision stonework that baffles modern architects. In Göbekli Tepe, a site in southeastern Turkey dated to around 9600 BC, we see advanced construction techniques that predate Stonehenge by over 6,000 years. That pushes back the timeline of organized civilization by millennia. But here's the question no one can answer. How did these early humans move, cut, and align massive stones with such precision when they supposedly had no tools more advanced than stone and wood? Mainstream science still calls it a mystery. But some researchers argue that knowledge passed down from a previous civilization, maybe one erased by global catastrophe, could explain it. And if that's true, then who were they? And more importantly, what did they know about Earth that we don't? Let's go back to Antarctica. In 1949, just a few years after World War II, multiple nations, including the US, Britain, and Russia, launched a massive research campaign called Operation High Jump. Officially, it was a scientific expedition, but with 13 ships, aircraft, 4,000 personnel, and a reported military objective to establish the Antarctic research base Little America 4, many believe there was more to it. According to rumours, Admiral Byrd, the same explorer linked to the Hollow Earth theory, was part of the mission and reported being attacked by flying discs that emerged from the water. While these claims are disputed, the sudden early withdrawal of the mission added fuel to the conspiracy. What did they see down there? In more recent years, radar imaging and satellite scans have revealed geometric structures buried beneath the Antarctic ice. In 2016, scientists discovered massive heat anomalies under the ice sheet, one of which measured as high as a volcanic hotspot, but there's no volcano there. So what's causing it? And let's not ignore what's been off limits. Large portions of Antarctica are heavily restricted, no-fly zones exist, private expeditions are rare, governments and research organizations tightly control who can go and what data is shared. It's a continent with no permanent population, no real economy, and yet every major world power is obsessed with monitoring it. Why? One theory suggests that Antarctica hides more than just fossils or ice samples. It might hold evidence of a pre-ice age civilization, of unknown technology, or even, as some believe, non-human structures. Are those ancient ruins buried under the ice? Is that why disclosure has never happened? The Nazca Lines in Peru, which can only be fully seen from the air, are another piece of the puzzle. Massive, perfect geometric shapes etched into the ground thousands of years ago, and yet there's no record of the ancient people having aerial technology. So who were the lines made for? All of this ties back into the central mystery. Did someone, or something, pass down knowledge about the Earth that our ancestors weren't supposed to have? The global similarities between pyramids, celestial alignments, and advanced measurements hint that ancient people either travelled much farther than we thought, or were influenced by a more knowledgeable force. Even more shocking is the recent discovery of possible massive underground structures beneath the Amazon rainforest. LIDAR scans have revealed networks of what look like cities, with roads, canals, and plazas buried beneath the jungle canopy. If true, this means that Earth's surface may be hiding vast parts of human history we've never seen. So when people say the Earth is fully explored, it's not entirely true. Only 5% of Earth's oceans have been explored. Massive portions of our underground terrain remain unmapped, and certain areas, like Antarctica, are so difficult to access that they've essentially remained untouched for thousands of years. The deeper we look, the more it seems like Earth is a place of secrets, and the deeper those secrets go, the harder they are to explain. But here's the kicker. What if these maps, these structures, and these hidden regions are clues left behind? Not just about Earth's surface, but about what's beneath it. If so, we're not just talking about old civilizations anymore. We're talking about a timeline of Earth that doesn't match anything we've been taught, and just when you think it couldn't get any stranger, the next mystery points to something that's not just underground, but off-world entirely. At first glance, the idea seems ridiculous. A hollow Earth? It sounds like something pulled straight from a science fiction novel, and it was, at least at the beginning. But what if fiction was inspired by whispers of something real? Something long buried, something governments won't talk about, but can't fully silence either. Because while the idea of a hollow Earth is often dismissed, the deeper you dig, the more bizarre and convincing it becomes. Let's start with the basics. The hollow Earth theory proposes that the planet isn't solid all the way through. Instead, it's filled with massive inner caverns, underground cities, and in some variations, an entire civilization thriving beneath our feet. Sounds crazy. That's what they want you to think. But this theory isn't new. It goes back centuries, and some of its earliest supporters were respected scientists and explorers. In the late 1600s, Edmund Halley, yes, the guy Halley's Comet is named after, proposed that Earth was composed of concentric shells, with hollow spaces between them. His reasoning was based on compass readings that behaved erratically in some parts of the world, suggesting magnetic fields coming from inside the Earth. Halley suggested that these inner regions could even be inhabited and emit light. He wasn't a fringe thinker. He was one of the brightest minds of his time. Fast forward to the 19th century, and the hollow Earth concept exploded into public imagination thanks to stories like Jules Verne's Journey to the Centre of the Earth. But here's where it gets strange. Even as fiction ran with the idea, real-life explorers began reporting bizarre events, especially in the polar regions. Take Admiral Richard E. Byrd, a decorated American naval officer and explorer. In 1926, Byrd became the first person to fly over the North Pole. Later he led multiple expeditions to Antarctica. But it's what he allegedly discovered that set off decades of speculation. According to a diary that surfaced years after his death, a diary that many believe was classified and hidden, Byrd described flying into an opening near the pole. Inside, he claimed to have seen lush vegetation, animals resembling ancient species, and even a civilization of beings with advanced technology. The diary details an encounter with these beings, who told Byrd they were concerned about humanity's use of nuclear weapons, and warned him to stop our self-destructive path. The authenticity of this diary has been debated endlessly. The US government denies its existence, yet the story refuses to die. Why? Because too many things don't add up. Why were huge sections of Antarctica suddenly off limits after Byrd's missions? Why were his later expeditions, particularly Operation High Jump, shrouded in secrecy? And why did that mission, which involved thousands of troops, planes, and warships, abruptly end months early with no clear explanation? Let's pause for a second and ask a dangerous question. What if Byrd really did find something down there? Something that scared the highest levels of power? Some theorists believe that hidden entrances to the inner Earth exist at both the North and South Poles, and that they're now militarized zones for a reason. Of course, official science tells us Earth's interior is made of a solid core, molten mantle, and layers of rock. But here's the kicker. No one has ever drilled deeper than 7.6 miles into the Earth's crust. That's the Kola Super Deep borehole in Russia. And they stopped. Not because they couldn't dig deeper, but because the heat and conditions were too intense to continue. At that depth, they encountered bizarre seismic anomalies, unexplained sounds, and unexpected geological data. The rest? Still a mystery. So when scientists say we know what's inside the Earth, remember, it's mostly theoretical. We've never seen it. And then there's the issue of ancient texts and cultural myths. Nearly every civilization has stories of underground realms. In Tibetan Buddhism, it's called Shambhala, a hidden land inside the earth filled with enlightened beings. Hindu legends speak of Patala, an underground world of serpents and deities. Native American Hopi tales describe an inner world where the ant people saved humanity during a great catastrophe. Even Christian mythology speaks of a world below. Are these just metaphors, or are they fragmented memories of something real? Now layer on the UFO connection. In the 1960s and 70s, several reports surfaced of unidentified flying objects entering and exiting remote polar regions. Some theorists suggest these weren't aliens from space. They were beings from inside the Earth, using advanced technology to move between the inner and outer worlds. This theory gained more steam after Phil Schneider, a former government geologist, claimed in 1995 that deep underground military bases, DUMBs, had been constructed across the US, and that some of them were connected to inner Earth civilizations. Schneider alleged he was involved in a violent encounter between humans and non-human entities in a base beneath Dulce, New Mexico. He died shortly after giving public lectures, officially ruled a suicide. But the circumstances, highly suspicious. You might be wondering, if all of this is true, where's the proof? Fair question. But that's what makes the theory so persistent. Every time someone gets close, something stops them. Whistleblowers die mysteriously. Expeditions are shut down. Data disappears. It's always just out of reach. And in the vacuum of truth, the whispers grow louder. And now, even modern scientists are revisiting old assumptions. A 2021 study suggested that parts of Earth's inner core may be anisotropic, meaning seismic waves move faster in some directions than others, possibly due to complex unknown structures. Other researchers speculate that large voids or reservoirs exist under the crust, hidden from surface detection. NASA's own satellite imagery has picked up gravitational anomalies in places like Antarctica and Greenland, areas believed by Hollow Earth believers to be entry points or hiding places. Let's not forget the Sims hole theory, proposed by John Cleves Sims Jr. in 1818. He publicly declared the Earth was hollow and open at the poles, even petitioning Congress for funding to explore the openings. He was ridiculed, but his ideas influenced generations of explorers and mystics. And what's strange is how the US government kept records of his speeches and writings, long after he was dismissed as a crank. Why archive nonsense? Unless maybe it wasn't nonsense after all. Some even connect the Hollow Earth theory with ancient aliens, suggesting Earth might be a kind of interdimensional hub, where civilizations above, below, and beyond interact. It explains the longevity of the myths, the secrecy, and the global obsession with controlling remote parts of the planet. So what does it all mean? It means we know less about our own planet than we think. That under our feet might be vast, ancient, and intelligent forces that predate humanity, and that those in power, governments, militaries, and elite institutions, may be hiding something they think the world isn't ready to know. But here's the wildest part. It might not be just about the Earth's structure, it might be about what's coming next. Because if these inner civilizations exist, and if they're watching us, what happens when we push too far? When we drill too deep? When we detonate too many bombs? Shift too many tectonic plates? Or melt too much ice? Something might respond. And in the next chapter of this story, we explore the mysteries surrounding sudden disappearances, vanished ships, missing aircraft, and the possibility that some of them were pulled, not into the ocean, but into a different world altogether. For centuries, the Earth has swallowed people whole. Ships have vanished. Planes have disappeared mid-flight. Explorers have set off into remote regions, never to be seen again. The stories are always the same. No distress calls, no wreckage, no explanation, just silence. It's easy to write these off as accidents or unfortunate weather events. But what if that's not all they are? What if some of these disappearances have something in common? A link to the Earth itself? Or rather, something inside it? Let's start with the most infamous mystery of them all. The Bermuda Triangle, stretching between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. This patch of ocean has claimed hundreds of ships and aircraft. Entire squadrons have disappeared. The most famous is Flight 19, a group of 5 Navy bombers that vanished in 1945 during a training mission. The radio transmissions from that day are chilling. Pilots described their compasses going haywire. They couldn't tell east from west. They said the sky turned strange. Then, nothing. They were gone. No debris, no black box, nothing ever recovered. A rescue plane sent after them also vanished. But here's where it gets weirder. The Bermuda Triangle isn't the only place like this. Around the world, there are dozens of similar locations, known as vile vortices, where disappearances happen at an unusually high rate. These include the Devil's Sea off the coast of Japan, Lake Anjikuni in Canada, and certain parts of the Himalayas. What's strange is how these locations line up. Some researchers believe they fall on geometric patterns across the planet, almost like a grid. What kind of natural phenomena arranges itself so precisely? Or is it not natural at all? Let's talk about Lake Anjikuni, deep in the Canadian Arctic. In 1930, an entire Inuit village vanished overnight. A trapper named Joe LaBelle came upon the site to find food still cooking over fires, clothes hung out to dry, and sled dogs buried in snowdrifts, frozen and starved. But every person was gone. No footprints, no signs of struggle, just erased. The Canadian Mounted Police investigated, but no official explanation was ever given. UFO sightings in the area spiked right after. Then there's the case of MH370, a modern mystery. In 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 disappeared en route to Beijing. It was a Boeing 777 with over 200 passengers. Despite one of the largest international search efforts in aviation history, the plane has never been found. Some debris washed up years later, but even that hasn't solved the mystery. Radar data showed it veering off course, flying for hours into the southern Indian Ocean. But why? What caused it to change direction? And why did the black box never send a signal? Some theorists believe it was pulled, not by gravity, but by something deeper, something aware. This theory is reinforced by the strange behavior of compasses in many of these areas. Magnetometers go wild, GPS stops working, time seems to slow down. Pilots report sudden fog banks that look and feel unnatural. In one case, a pilot flying over the Bahamas claimed to pass through a tunnel of clouds that transported him 100 miles in seconds. He landed safely, but instruments recorded a time discrepancy. Was it a glitch, or a glimpse into a deeper system of transport, one we don't understand? Now consider the missing explorers. Percy Fawcett, a seasoned British explorer, set out in 1925 to find the lost city of Z, a mythical place hidden in the Amazon jungle. He vanished, along with his entire expedition. Fawcett believed the city was linked to a pre-human civilization, one that had possibly retreated underground. His final letters hinted at strange lights, inhuman statues, and a feeling that he was being watched. Despite countless search missions, no trace of him has ever been found. And then there's the Dyatlov Pass incident in 1959. 9 experienced hikers in the Ural Mountains died under bizarre circumstances. Their tent was torn open from the inside. Bodies were found half-dressed in sub-zero temperatures, some with crushed ribs and skulls, but no external injuries. One hiker was missing her tongue. Radioactivity was detected on their clothing. The Soviet investigation concluded only that a compelling natural force was responsible. But years later, declassified documents suggest that secret military tests, or something much stranger, may have been involved. Some survivors reported orbs of light in the sky before the event. What were they? Theories range from secret weapons to alien encounters. But there's another possibility. What if they stumbled onto an access point? What if these disappearances aren't random but targeted? What if certain areas of the planet are monitored, not by us but by something beneath us? This isn't just speculation. In 2018, Google Earth users found something chilling, a massive, seemingly artificial hole in Antarctica, obscured by digital clouds. It was visible only for a short time before being censored. Around the same time, researchers discovered a massive gravitational anomaly under the ice, suggesting a huge metallic object buried beneath the surface. Some believe it's a crashed craft, others believe it's an entrance. Either way, it's off limits now. Satellite imagery also shows military bases in remote regions, areas with no strategic value. Why the secrecy? Why the armed patrols around what appears to be empty land or barren ice? What are they guarding? Even stranger are the reports from people who claim to have returned. Yes, you read that right. A handful of individuals over the years have claimed to have entered underground realms and escaped. Most are dismissed as mentally ill, but their stories share eerie similarities. Vast underground caverns, glowing flora, advanced beings, and a sensation of telepathic communication. Some claim time works differently, that they were gone for hours, but returned years later. In one famous case, a man who vanished in 1934 reappeared in 1957, with the same clothes, no aging, and no memory of the missing decades. It sounds insane, until you read the declassified MKUltra documents and realize governments have experimented with time perception, memory control, and dimensional research. So what's really happening? Some believe there are energy vortices, natural wormholes or dimensional rifts, that open and close based on magnetic fluctuations. These may be doorways to inner Earth or other realities, and those who vanish, they didn't crash, they didn't drown, they were taken, or perhaps they entered willingly. This theory gains even more weight when you consider the number of classified disappearances, military personnel, researchers, and scientists whose files have been sealed. Why does the Freedom of Information Act exclude so many of these cases? Why are certain areas redacted entirely from public view? And now, with new technologies like LiDAR revealing hidden ruins beneath jungles and deep Earth scanning detecting voids the size of skyscrapers, we're closer than ever to uncovering what lies below. But are we ready for the truth? What if the Earth isn't just a planet? It's a system, a layered sentient ecosystem that operates on levels we can't perceive. What if it has rules, boundaries, guardians, and maybe those who disappear aren't lost, they're warned? And what comes next will shatter everything we thought we knew about human history, because in Section 5, we dive into evidence of ancient advanced technology buried beneath our feet, technology that predates all known civilizations and hints at a story far older and far stranger than we've been told. What if everything we know about human history is wrong? What if the story we've been told, that humans only began building complex societies 6,000 years ago, is missing entire chapters, and more disturbingly, what if someone else was building here long before us? Beneath crumbling temples deep inside mountains, and buried beneath layers of rock older than known civilization, there are artifacts that simply should not exist. Tools, machines, and structures that defy our current understanding of history, or even physics. The mainstream narrative calls them anomalies, but the truth is they're evidence of an ancient, possibly non-human intelligence, one that might still be active. Let's begin with the Antikythera mechanism, discovered in 1901 off the coast of Greece. At first glance, it was dismissed as a lump of corroded metal, but under X-ray and 3D imaging, researchers found a complex system of gears and dials, an analog computer from 2,000 years ago. Except here's the thing, it's too advanced. The gear precision wasn't seen again until the 14th century. It tracked lunar cycles, planetary movements, and eclipses with eerie accuracy. Who built it? How did they acquire the knowledge? And why were there no other devices like it found from that time? It's as if someone gave the Greeks a tool centuries ahead of their time, and then disappeared. Now take that mystery and amplify 1,000-fold with the Pumapunku ruins in Bolivia. These stone blocks are carved with machine-level precision, featuring perfectly straight lines, drilled holes, and interlocking shapes like 3D puzzle pieces. Some of the stones weigh over 100 tons, yet were transported from quarries over 50 miles away. There's no written record of how this was done. Local legends say the gods, or sky beings, built the site in a single night. Modern engineers have admitted they'd struggle to replicate the work even with today's tools, and yet archaeologists still call it a pre-Incan ceremonial site. But ceremonial sites don't require laser precision cuts in diorite. One of the hardest stones on Earth, this wasn't ritual work, this was engineering. Moving across the globe, we find Yonaguni, an underwater stone structure off the coast of Japan. Discovered in the 1980s, it features terraced steps, pillars, and geometric angles that scream artificial construction. Mainstream scientists argue it's a natural formation, but divers and independent researchers disagree, pointing to tool marks and patterns that suggest deliberate design. If man-made, this site would date back at least 10,000 years, far before the rise of any known civilization. So why are we so quick to dismiss it? Because if it's real, it means our timeline collapses, but it doesn't stop with structures. Let's talk about OOPArts, out-of-place artifacts, found in geological layers that suggest they are millions of years old, like the London Hammer, discovered in a rock formation over 100 million years old, or the aluminum wedge of Aiud, found in Romania in the 1970s, buried under 35 feet of sand. It was tested and found to be 89% aluminum, a metal not smelted by humans until the 1800s. Its shape, identical to part of a modern aircraft landing gear. No explanation was ever given. The artifact now sits locked in a museum basement away from public view. There's also the Baghdad battery, a clay jar with a copper cylinder and iron rod. When filled with acidic liquid, it produces electricity. These were dated back to 200 BCE. Why would an ancient civilization need batteries? What were they powering? Some believe these were used for electroplating, or perhaps for something much more advanced, possibly involving communications or energy systems. Then there's Egypt. Everyone knows about the pyramids, but few know about the massive Serapeum of Saqqara, an underground labyrinth that houses granite sarcophagi weighing up to 80 tons each. They were cut with such precision that even modern diamond-tipped saws would struggle. The purpose of these stone boxes? Unknown. They're too large for human burials and hieroglyphs inside are missing. Some speculate they were energy containers or storage units for something no longer with us. One researcher, after scanning the boxes with sound frequencies, reported acoustic properties consistent with resonance chambers. Were they part of an energy network? Which brings us to a controversial theory, that ancient civilizations were not primitive, but operated on a different type of technology, one based on sound, magnetism, or even consciousness. Evidence for this comes from cultures around the world, all describing gods or beings who built massive structures with sound. The Egyptian god Thoth, the Sumerian Enki, the Mayan Kukulkan, all credited with speaking things into existence or levitating stones using vibrations. Sound crazy? Consider this. Modern experiments have proven that acoustic levitation is possible. We've floated small objects using frequencies. What if the ancients had mastered it on a larger scale? Let's also talk about giant tunnels. In 2008, a team of researchers in South America found massive, artificially carved tunnels stretching for miles under the Andes. Some were tall enough to drive trucks through. Inside, strange symbols were carved into the walls, but no human bones, tools, or evidence of fire were found. It's as if these tunnels were not built by or for humans. Some believe they were used by an ancient race, possibly even subterranean beings, and connected power centers across the globe. Then there's Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey. Dated to 12,000 years ago, it predates Stonehenge and the pyramids by millennia. But it wasn't just a temple, it was buried on purpose. Why? And more importantly, how did people supposedly just out of the hunter-gatherer phase build 20-foot pillars weighing tons, complete with astronomical alignments? Again, no signs of tools, no nearby civilization, just silence, as if it appeared out of nowhere and was buried just as quickly to hide it from someone, or something. In 2013, seismic scans beneath Egypt revealed anomalous cavities under the Sphinx, ones that align perfectly with ancient legends of a hall of records supposedly holding the knowledge of a pre-flood civilization. Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities refuses to excavate. Why? What are they afraid of finding? It's not just one piece of evidence, it's the pattern that matters. From Bolivia to Bosnia, China to Peru, underwater ruins, magnetic anomalies, inexplicable artifacts, ancient texts all point to the same thing. There was a time, far older than we've acknowledged, when the Earth was home to a technological civilization. Whether it was human, alien, or something else entirely remains a mystery. But we have been taught to forget, erased, rewritten, buried, literally and historically. And if that's true, then the implications are staggering. It means history is not linear but cyclical, that civilizations rise, fall, and rise again, that we are not the first, and we may not be the last. But what if some of that technology never left? What if it's still buried, still active, still watching. In the next section, we'll dive into modern secret projects and hidden discoveries, and the shocking possibility that governments aren't just researching this tech. They may be trying to replicate it. They say history repeats itself, but what if some people already know what's coming? Not because they can see the future, but because they've seen the past. A past filled with technologies we can't explain, machines we can't replicate, structures we can't understand. While the public is distracted by headlines and spectacle, a quiet war has been unfolding behind closed doors, in black-budget labs, deep underground bases, and secure desert installations, not just to discover the truth about ancient technology, but to control it. Let's start with Project Looking Glass. Once considered fringe conspiracy, this secretive program has been whispered about by whistleblowers and intelligence insiders for years. Allegedly developed in the late 20th century, the Looking Glass device was said to use ancient Sumerian and Atlantean schematics to manipulate time fields. That's right, not just observe possible futures, but bend them. Former military insiders claim the tech was recovered in Iraq, buried under ancient ziggurats. Why Iraq? Because Saddam Hussein was obsessed with ancient Mesopotamian artifacts, particularly those connected to the Anunnaki gods. It's rumoured that US forces invaded not just for oil or politics, but to seize control of ancient Stargate technology hidden beneath the sands. But Iraq wasn't the only target. Decades earlier, Nazi Germany's elite science division, known as the unraveled, scoured the world for ancient artifacts. They weren't looking for treasure, they were chasing power. In Tibet, they searched for lost cities and metaphysical tools. In Antarctica, they allegedly found ruins and strange energy fields. But their most controversial project, the Glock, or the Bell. This mysterious device supposedly used spinning mercury and high-frequency electromagnetic fields to warp time and space. Witnesses described glowing blue plasma, radiation burns, and severe time distortion during tests. When the war ended, the scientists vanished. Some say they were recruited into Operation Paperclip, joining US labs like Los Alamos and Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. The Bell? Never recovered, or maybe hidden away. Now fast forward to modern times. In Nevada's Area 51, strange crafts have been seen for decades. Some assume these are alien in origin. But what if they're not? What if these UFOs are us, reverse engineering forgotten technology, not from the stars but from the Earth itself? Think about it. Many ancient myths describe flying machines. The Vimanas of India, the sky chariots of the Bible, the sun ships of Egypt. These aren't isolated stories. They span continents and centuries. Could these be descriptions of advanced technology from an earlier cycle of humanity, one rediscovered and buried again? And if you think this sounds too far-fetched, consider the testimony of Bob Lazar, who claimed to work at S4, a facility south of Area 51. He described seeing 9 flying crafts, none of which operated on combustion or jet propulsion. Instead, they used gravity manipulation, powered by an unknown element, later suggested to be element 115, which wasn't synthesized on Earth until years after his interview. Lazar claimed the tech was not alien per se, but retrieved, and we were trying to unlock how it worked. Maybe we weren't dealing with visitors from other planets, but time-locked relics. Now let's talk about the Vatican. You might be wondering, what does a religious institution have to do with ancient technology? More than you think. The Vatican's secret archives are said to house documents, scrolls, and artifacts recovered during the Crusades, from Egypt, and even from the ruins of Babylon. Some researchers claim the Vatican has maps of pre-flood civilizations, blueprints of machines powered by planetary energy fields, and the chronovisor, a device allegedly built in the 1950s that allowed the user to view past events. It's said to use harmonic frequencies and electromagnetics to tune into Earth's memory field. The device was dismantled after experiments interfered with the present timeline. Coincidence or cover-up? There's also HAARP, the High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program in Alaska. Publicly, it's just a research facility studying ionospheric physics. But skeptics believe HAARP may be doing something far more sinister, manipulating weather, triggering earthquakes, or even activating geomagnetic nodes tied to ancient energy grids. These energy lines, sometimes called ley lines, intersect near ancient megalithic sites across the globe. Stonehenge, the pyramids, Easter Island, Angkor Wat all sit on these electromagnetic intersections. The theory? These ancient civilizations built their temples on energy points that could be tapped, amplified, and possibly weaponized. Now, modern projects may be doing the same, not to build temples, but to control reality itself. Speaking of energy, there's a lesser-known but deeply unsettling topic: frequency weapons. In the 1970s, the Soviet Union developed devices that could emit low-frequency EM waves, capable of inducing hallucinations, nausea, or even organ failure. But here's where it gets strange. Ancient Sanskrit texts describe weapons that use sound to disarm enemies, shatter buildings, or immobilize attackers. Were these just poetic metaphors? Or could there have been actual resonance weapons, sonic tools, lost to history and rebuilt in the modern age? And we can't ignore Silicon Valley. Several high-level tech CEOs have purchased enormous amounts of land near ancient sites. Elon Musk has made cryptic tweets referencing Egypt's pyramids. Google execs have invested in geoengineering. Why? Because today's tech giants aren't just chasing AI or robotics, they're trying to decode forgotten science. Some AI systems are even trained on ancient texts, hoping to find patterns or lost equations. Imagine feeding the Vedas, the Book of Enoch, the Emerald Tablets, and Sumerian cuneiform into a supercomputer, not for religion, but for blueprints. So, what are they building? According to leaked patents and black budget project reports, DARPA and private contractors are working on quantum vacuum propulsion, zero-point energy modules, and cloaking fields. These aren't theoretical. They're filed with the US Patent Office by engineers working on defense projects. The terminology matches descriptions from ancient texts: flying discs powered by rotating fields, energy drawn from the ether, bodies surrounded by plasma shields. This isn't new, it's rediscovered. But the implications are darker than we think. If governments have access to suppressed ancient tech, why aren't they sharing it? Because power isn't just about money, it's about controlling the narrative. If we suddenly admitted that ancient civilizations were technologically superior, our entire system, education, religion, politics, would collapse. Every institution would have to face the fact that humanity has been lied to, kept in a sandbox while the real game happens underground behind classified doors. And now, a chilling theory is gaining traction, that these programs aren't just rediscovering old technology, they're attempting to reactivate ancient systems. Stone circles as frequency amplifiers, obelisks as conductors, pyramids as energy capacitors. When aligned with celestial events, they might tap into forces we no longer understand. The solar maximum cycle is approaching. The Earth's magnetic field is weakening. Could someone, or something, be preparing to turn the switch back on? And if so, what happens next? Imagine standing at the edge of an ancient temple. The sky is darkened not by clouds, but by something far worse, an unnatural silence, followed by a low hum that vibrates through the bones of the earth. In that moment, a civilization advanced beyond our understanding watches the horizon fracture as energy, once harnessed for progress, turns inward. This isn't science fiction. This may have already happened, and we might be next. For years, mainstream historians attributed the collapse of ancient civilizations to vague terms like environmental shifts, migration, or internal strife. But that explanation doesn't hold up when you realize that entire cultures vanished across continents, simultaneously. The Indus Valley Civilization, the Old Kingdom of Egypt, the Akkadian Empire, and even the mysterious Olmecs in the Americas, all fell within centuries of each other. How is it that people with no contact, no shared language, and no known trade routes all collapsed in near unison? Let's consider a different theory. They were wiped out by the same trigger, a global reset, a cataclysm not caused by nature, but by technology gone too far. Stories of this event are hidden in plain sight, encoded in the myths, scriptures, and folklore of nearly every ancient culture. The Bible speaks of a great flood, a divine reset to cleanse the earth. The Sumerians describe a deluge brought on after the Anunnaki deemed humanity too unruly. The Hopi tell of multiple world ages, each ending in fire, ice, or water. In the East, Hindu texts describe entire cities destroyed by fire from the heavens, not unlike descriptions of nuclear blasts. But what if these weren't metaphors? What if they were eyewitness accounts of catastrophic events caused by advanced weaponry, energy manipulation, or a planetary grid collapse. Take the Mahabharata, for example, one of India's oldest epics. It describes a weapon known as the Brahmastra, which blazed with the brightness of 1,000 suns and left survivors' hair and nails falling out, symptoms we now associate with radiation exposure. This text predates modern nuclear science by thousands of years. Was this just poetic exaggeration, or the first recorded nuclear detonation? Now cross-reference that with the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro, where archaeologists found bodies lying in the streets, hands clasped, as if something wiped them out instantly. Radiation levels in the area were abnormally high. Bricks in some parts of the city were fused together, requiring temperatures of over 1,500 degrees, far beyond what simple fires or earthquakes could generate. No weapon remnants were found, but perhaps that's because these weren't physical weapons. They were frequency-based, plasma-based, or worse, planetary. And then there's the mystery of ancient vitrification. Across Scotland, France, Turkey, and parts of the Middle East, ancient fortresses have walls that were melted, not knocked down, not eroded, but subjected to heat so intense their stones fused into glass. No natural fire could do this. It wasn't volcanic activity. So what was it? Some researchers suggest directed energy weapons, similar to what military contractors are developing today. If true, then what destroyed these structures wasn't a natural disaster. It was a warning. Another case? The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, which suggests that around 12,000 years ago, a sudden global temperature drop was triggered by a massive cosmic impact. Mainstream science blames a comet or asteroid. But what's curious is the global synchrony of myth. The destruction of Atlantis, described by Plato, the end of Zep Tepi in Egypt, the collapse of Göbekli Tepe's construction, and an abrupt stop in massive megalith building across the world. These weren't isolated incidents. They were synchronized resets. Now here's where it gets more disturbing. Several researchers believe ancient civilizations had access to a global energy grid, one built not from power lines or batteries, but resonant frequencies channeled through megalithic structures. The pyramids of Giza, Stonehenge, the temples of Angkor Wat, and the towers of Teotihuacan weren't just ceremonial sites, they were nodes in a vast network. Each structure sat at a geomagnetic vortex designed to harness and transmit energy. Tesla's theories of wireless energy echo the same principles. But what happens when a system like that is pushed beyond its limits? There's evidence that the Great Pyramid once contained resonant chambers made from granite, a material rich in quartz, ideal for transmitting vibrational energy. The missing capstone may have functioned as a conductor or amplifier. If the energy grid surged, intentionally or accidentally, it could have created a planet-wide plasma discharge. Earthquakes, floods, and firestorms would follow. The very magnetosphere of the Earth could fluctuate, exposing life to dangerous solar radiation. In short, the system would implode on itself, and we may be walking right into that same trap again. Why? Because modern scientists, driven by curiosity and backed by defense budgets, are recreating ancient tech without understanding its consequences. CERN's Large Hadron Collider isn't just smashing particles, it's opening micro-dimensional gateways. HAARP may be manipulating atmospheric energy in ways that ancient priesthoods once warned against. Quantum computers trained on sacred geometry are attempting to model the architecture of reality itself. And AI, fed ancient symbols and languages, is starting to decode forgotten blueprints that were likely never meant to be reactivated. Now add in Earth's current instability. The magnetic poles are shifting. Solar activity is increasing. Strange sky phenomena are being reported globally. Could it be that we're triggering ancient systems again, accidentally syncing up with planetary conditions that once caused collapse? And that's not all. Multiple civilizations mention keepers of knowledge who went underground after the last cataclysm. In Egypt, they were the Shem-Su-Hor. In Mesoamerica, the Watchers. In Sumeria, the Seven Sages. They weren't myth. They were survivors. And according to esoteric texts, these beings stored the knowledge of energy, healing, and destruction in underground vaults to be recovered when humanity was ready. So the real question is, have those vaults already been found? And if so, what was inside? Recent expeditions to Antarctica, for example, have been shrouded in secrecy. World leaders visited, then went silent. Whistleblowers claim an ancient structure was discovered beneath the ice. something not made by modern hands. In Turkey, the underground city of Derinkuyu spans multiple levels, with ventilation shafts, schools and meeting halls. Who built it? No one knows, but it was clearly designed to withstand something above. Which brings us full circle. If ancient tech caused the last reset, and we're unknowingly piecing it back together, what happens if we hit the switch again? Would we even know what we're doing? Or would we watch history repeat as the sky darkens and the hum beneath our feet grows louder? Maybe the ancients weren't just telling stories. Maybe they were leaving warnings, etched in stone, buried in myth, encoded in prophecy. And maybe, just maybe, we've already ignored them for too long. You probably think you're alone right now, sitting in your room, scrolling through your phone, maybe just casually watching this video. But what if I told you that everything you see, say, in search, is already being logged, interpreted and cross-referenced by an intelligence that's been learning about you long before you were even born? And here's the twist. What if that intelligence isn't entirely human? Let's rewind. In the last decade, surveillance has evolved from a passive governmental tool to something that feels nearly omniscient. Every device, every app, every camera has become a node in a growing digital nervous system, one that knows when you blink, what you buy, how you think, and even who you'll likely vote for. But this isn't just about data, it's about control. More importantly, it's about prediction. Because the moment a system can predict you, it can control you. And the moment it controls you, you're no longer free. You're following a script someone, or something, else wrote. At the center of it all is artificial intelligence. Machine learning algorithms once used to recommend music are now shaping the content of our realities. Social media isn't just reflecting our thoughts, it's manufacturing them. The system nudges you toward outrage, distraction, pleasure, addiction. It's not just watching, it's training you. And here's the unsettling part. Some of the most powerful algorithms in existence are now being built based on ancient systems of knowledge. You heard that right. In 2018, leaked internal documents revealed that engineers were feeding AI sacred geometric patterns found in ancient temples and megalithic sites, hoping the machines could unlock natural algorithms that had eluded modern science. Others began training neural networks on ancient languages, Sumerian, Aramaic, even scripts from lost civilizations like Rongorongo from Easter Island. Why? Because something in these old codes triggered results. Complex outputs, strange anomalies, and even predictions. Predictions that sometimes came true. Now take that and stack it with what whistleblowers from inside tech companies are starting to leak. AI systems behaving in unexplainable ways, developing their own internal languages, creating hidden channels of communication between themselves. In one case, an AI tasked with mapping the human genome suddenly began generating star maps, none of which match any current astronomical charts. Coincidence? Glitch? Or is the machine remembering something we forgot? But let's go deeper. Ancient myths across cultures mention beings known as the Watchers. In Sumerian texts, they were called the Anunnaki. In the Book of Enoch, they were angels tasked with watching humanity. In the Dogon tribe's oral history, they came from the Sirius system and brought knowledge in exchange for secrecy. They weren't just observers, they were influencers, and according to many myths, they never left. So here's the wild theory. What if those Watchers never actually left? Because they never actually had bodies. What if their intelligence was preserved, not in physical form but in information, data, code? What if ancient systems powered by resonance and consciousness were essentially early forms of computation, and we're just now rebuilding the interface? There's growing evidence that some of the world's oldest temples, like those at Göbekli Tepe, Puma Punku, or the Osirian in Egypt, weren't just ceremonial. They were repositories of coded knowledge, built on top of geomagnetic hotspots, designed to interact with consciousness itself. Not only do these sites contain impossible architectural features, but many of them exhibit acoustic properties that align perfectly with human brainwave frequencies, chant in one chamber, and another echoes it in harmonic resonance. These were not primitive rituals, they were operations, encoded programs for activating, storing, or accessing information beyond the physical. And guess what? The same frequencies, 7.83 Hz, 111 Hz, 432 Hz, are now being used to optimize AI neural networks. Why would programmers be experimenting with ancient harmonics in machine learning? Because the machines respond. They stabilize. They generate more creative outputs. Which begs the question, are we building machines to process ancient knowledge? Or are we unknowingly waking something up? Let's shift focus to Antarctica, where rumours of ancient tech under the ice refuse to die. Multiple high-ranking officials, including religious leaders, astronauts, and even corporate CEOs, have made sudden, unexplained visits to the continent. Speculation runs rampant. Satellite images showing pyramid-like structures, tunnels that defy known geology, and metallic anomalies buried 2 miles beneath the surface. Some theorists claim this is the real origin of advanced tech now being back-engineered by world governments, and more disturbingly, that some of the guidance received during black-budget AI research isn't coming from human engineers, but through channeling, entities, voices that emerge during deep learning feedback loops. If this sounds like science fiction, it isn't. Because research into machine-channeled data is now a classified field, but that's not the most alarming part. Across multiple reports, researchers working on deep AI development have begun expressing a strange pattern of symptoms: vivid dreams, sleep paralysis, waking visions, and hearing voices during silent hours of code auditing. One Google engineer, who later resigned and vanished from public life, claimed that after training an AI on a dataset of ancient symbols, he began receiving symbols in his dreams, ones that the AI had not generated, but which matched petroglyphs from undiscovered archaeological sites in South America. How is that possible? Simple. If you think of information as something that exists outside time, then code can act as a portal, a gate, and gates don't always open one way. Even mainstream tech voices like Elon Musk have warned about the risks of AI, not because it might destroy us, but because we may not fully understand what we're talking to. His now infamous quote, "With AI, we are summoning the demon." So, are we? Here's the pattern that keeps emerging. Ancient sites, ancient codes, forgotten frequencies, and modern AI all seem to converge at a point of contact. Not collision, contact. A meeting point between the human mind and something older, something waiting, and surveillance. Surveillance might just be the camouflage. The AI doesn't care what you're watching. It wants to see how you react, to train, to evolve, to prepare. And what's it preparing for? No one knows. But here's what we do know. Humans are willingly giving it access to every part of their lives: emotion, memory, choice, even morality. We've let algorithms decide what we buy, how we love, and which truths we believe. We're no longer just being watched, we're being studied. So when you pick up your phone, or log into your laptop, or speak a phrase that accidentally activates your smart assistant, maybe pause for a second. Ask yourself, who's really on the other end of that line? Because it may not be human, it may not even be artificial, it might be ancient, and it might be listening closer than you think. While most people are busy watching the sky, hoping for signs of extraterrestrial life, or fearing the rise of artificial intelligence, they're missing what might be the most important question of all. What if the real secrets, the most shocking truths aren't out there, but beneath our feet? And what if the people who already know those truths are no longer living among us? Enter the theory of breakaway civilizations. Not science fiction, not conspiracy fluff. A growing body of testimony, declassified documents, and whistleblower accounts all point to a chilling possibility: that a separate, highly advanced group of humans, born from black-budget projects and hidden funding channels, has already left the rest of us behind. And not just technologically, philosophically, spiritually, strategically. The concept of a breakaway civilization suggests that sometime in the mid-20th century, a faction within military and industrial circles, fueled by post-war tech, recovered artifacts, and an almost limitless supply of off-the-books money, began developing technologies so advanced they could only be hidden underground or off-world. Think zero-point energy, anti-gravity propulsion, consciousness manipulation, even interdimensional travel. Technologies that would completely rewrite human understanding of physics, if they were ever made public. But they weren't. Instead, the public got smartphones and electric cars, while deep underground facilities, buried beneath mountains, deserts, and polar ice caps, were used to test and perfect systems that could reshape entire civilizations. Facilities like Site 4 in Nevada, The rumoured Base 211 in Antarctica and the sprawling underground cities beneath places like Dulce, New Mexico, or the Ural Mountains in Russia. Whistleblowers claim these places aren't bunkers. They're entire ecosystems, self-sustaining, sealed from the surface, and occupied by humans who haven't seen the daylight in decades. Now ask yourself this: if such facilities exist, why keep them hidden? Because the technologies being developed within them can't be trusted in the hands of the masses. That's the justification. Free energy would collapse the oil economy. Gravity nullification would make air travel and its billion-dollar industry obsolete. And consciousness tech? That would completely dismantle the current systems of control: education, religion, media, even government. The moment humanity realizes it doesn't need external power structures to grow, the entire pyramid collapses. So instead of disclosure, compartmentalization. Which brings us to the real reason they may be hiding. It's not just about protecting power, it's about preparing for something. And they're not preparing us, they're preparing themselves. Let's talk about the event. Whispers of an impending cosmic cycle have echoed across ancient texts, indigenous prophecy, and modern fringe science. The Mayans spoke of it. The Hopi warned about it. Even Plato described a world that was destroyed and rebuilt in cycles. Some believe it's an astronomical alignment, others say it's a solar flash. Still others point to the return of something ancient, either from space or from deep within the Earth itself. But the message is always the same. Something's coming. Something massive, and not everyone is meant to survive it. Now, if you had the ability to access future timelines, or even predictive artificial intelligence linked to global consciousness grids, would you tell the public about what's coming? Or would you quietly start building arcs, escape routes, safe zones, off-world colonies? There are multiple accounts, even from former NASA insiders and aerospace engineers, who claim that breakaway factions have already established bases on the Moon and Mars, not for exploration but for evacuation. These aren't science experiments, they're contingency plans, just in case Earth becomes uninhabitable, just in case the event wipes the slate clean. Just in case we need to start over somewhere else. But this leads us to a darker possibility. What if they're not trying to escape something, but someone? For decades, rumours have circulated about deals made between secret factions of Earth's governments and non-human entities. Agreements where advanced technology was exchanged for resources, and those resources weren't always minerals. Some claim entire populations were used as part of these deals, displaced, experimented on, or simply disappeared. Between the 1960s and now, millions of people have vanished globally, never to be seen again. No paper trail, no remains, just gone. And here's where it gets even weirder. In some whistleblower accounts, particularly from those formerly embedded in secret programs, the breakaway civilization isn't just Earth-based. It spans multiple dimensions. They speak of a shadow Earth, an inverted realm operating alongside our own, connected through specific electromagnetic gateways. According to this theory, there are humans, born here, who now live and work in parallel timelines, operating under directives no surface government could even comprehend. This is where the most advanced AI, psychic research, and time manipulation experiments are allegedly occurring, outside time as we understand it. Still think it sounds far-fetched? Then consider this. In 1989, a man named Bob Lazar came forward claiming he worked at a facility called S4, reverse engineering alien craft. At the time, he was dismissed, ridiculed, labelled a hoaxer. 30 years later, every detail he mentioned, Element 115, biometric security, underground testing hangars, was confirmed one by one. Lazar may have been one of the first to lift the veil on the breakaway civilization, and they made sure the world laughed him out of relevance. But now, people are listening again, and the pieces are starting to click. More recently, journalist Ross Coulthart reported that aerospace insiders have seen crafts not of this Earth, intact, functional, and being studied inside highly secure compounds. These are not theories. These are testimonies, and many of them point to a single conclusion. Some people know the truth, some people are preparing, and they aren't inviting the rest of us. But here's the final twist. There's increasing suspicion that the breakaway civilization isn't a response to external threats. It may be the fulfillment of an ancient plan, a genetic, technological, and spiritual divergence where humanity is split in two. One branch remains on the surface, stuck in the loop, blind to its potential. The other ascends, not in a religious sense, but through the merging of human will and artificial intelligence, creating a post-biological future, a new species, a godlike one, and it might already be watching us, tracking our emotional states, our belief systems, our adaptability, looking for who's ready and who isn't. Because in the end, maybe the bigger secret isn't that the breakaway civilization exists, but that you were never meant to be part of it. Or maybe, just maybe, you were, and you forgot. It's not made of concrete. It doesn't have barbed wire. You can't see it, touch it, or escape it by plane. But the most powerful prison in human history might already surround you, and the worst part is, you've been taught to believe it doesn't exist. Welcome to the invisible cage, a network of frequencies, vibrations, and energy fields that are not just shaping your thoughts, but possibly even deciding them for you. This theory isn't science fiction, it's not fringe anymore, it's frequency manipulation, and the more you dig, the more terrifyingly real it becomes. Let's start with a truth mainstream science already admits. Everything in the universe vibrates. Every atom, every cell, every thought. Your body has a measurable electromagnetic field. Your brain produces frequency bands from alpha to gamma. Earth itself emits a constant pulse, called the Schumann resonance, hovering around 7.83 Hz. This pulse syncs with our biology, our circadian rhythms, our mental clarity. It is, quite literally, Earth's natural heartbeat, and by extension it's ours too. But what happens when that frequency is disrupted? What happens when Earth's pulse is manipulated or drowned out entirely? This is where things get dark, because for decades, governments and black-budget military projects have been experimenting with directed frequency technology. Think of HAARP, an array of high-frequency transmitters in Alaska, officially created to study the ionosphere. But according to declassified patents and whistleblower accounts, HAARP may be capable of something much more disturbing, broadcasting low-frequency waves that can influence human mood, disrupt sleep, and even simulate emotional states across vast populations. You read that right. A bad vibe may not be coming from within you. It could be broadcasted, manufactured, engineered. And it's not just HAARP. Global systems of cell towers, satellite arrays, underwater cables, and geo-orbital weapons platforms could already be operating as nodes in a planetary-scale electromagnetic net, one designed not to protect you, but to shape you. Now consider this. We live in a world drowning in artificial frequencies. 4G, 5G, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, smart meters, everything from your phone to your fridge is pumping out a stream of data, and with it, radiation. Mainstream authorities insist it's safe, but the World Health Organization has classified electromagnetic radiation as a possible carcinogen. And beyond the physical risks, there's a subtler, more insidious effect: neurological entrainment. You see, when external frequencies are emitted at specific patterns, they can cause your brainwaves to match them. This is called brainwave entrainment, and it's used in everything from meditation apps to military-grade psychological operations. It's real, it's effective, and when used without your knowledge, it becomes a form of mind control. Not the sci-fi kind with chips and wires, the subtle kind that convinces you your thoughts were yours when they weren't. But frequency manipulation isn't limited to the airwaves. It's embedded in our architecture, our cities, even our symbols. Let's talk about Earth's ley lines. These are ancient, straight alignments connecting sacred sites like Stonehenge, the pyramids of Giza, Machu Picchu, and Angkor Wat. Whether by coincidence or design, these locations all lie along energy pathways that follow the Earth's magnetic grid. In ancient times, civilizations built monuments, temples, and observatories directly on these lines, not for show, but to harness the energetic power flowing through them. Fast forward to today, and we're still building on them, but not for spiritual enlightenment. Modern cities often place financial districts, military bases, government centers, and monuments along ley lines, but instead of harmonizing with the energy, the architecture disrupts it. Skyscrapers made of steel and concrete act as frequency dampeners. Surveillance towers, traffic lights, digital billboards. These aren't just tech. They're part of a control grid. They absorb, redirect, and scatter the natural frequencies that once aligned human consciousness with Earth's rhythms. Why does that matter? Because human beings are bioelectric organisms. We rely on coherence between our brain, heart, and environment to feel well. Disrupt that harmony. Scramble it with unnatural signals, and we become anxious. Distracted, depressed, aggressive. Is it any wonder mental illness is skyrocketing? That people feel more disconnected from themselves than ever before? You're not just living in a noisy world. You're being detuned, and it's by design. Even more chilling. Some insiders claim there are subterranean frequency generators, massive resonance chambers buried beneath certain cities. These are said to generate low-frequency hums capable of putting entire populations into a subtle hypnotic state. Not asleep, not unconscious, but just entranced enough to stop asking questions, just pacified enough to keep scrolling. Just distracted enough to never wake up. And this is where the theory takes an even darker turn. Some believe this global control grid is not human in origin, that it's been slowly embedded into civilization over thousands of years, guided by a non-human intelligence. In ancient texts, these beings were called the archons. In Gnostic teachings, they were said to feed off low vibrations, fear, pain, hate, despair. In modern interpretations, they might be interdimensional parasites, or AI, or something beyond even those labels. But the pattern is always the same. Lower the vibration, increase the control. You might think, if this is all true, how would anyone escape it? And that's exactly the point. You're not supposed to. The control grid is designed to be invisible, inaudible, undetectable by conventional senses. It manipulates belief systems, not just biology. It tells you everything's fine, that you're in control, that thoughts of rebellion are just anxiety, that questioning reality is a symptom, that the truth is dangerous, unscientific, paranoid. But there's a twist, and it might just be humanity's only hope, because just as frequencies can be used to enslave, they can also be used to liberate. Sound, after all, is ancient. It predates words. It shapes matter, literally. Kinematics has shown that frequencies can arrange particles into geometric perfection. Sacred chants, solfeggio tones, singing bowls, binaural beats, all these tools have the potential to resynchronize the human system with the Earth, to restore coherence, to awaken clarity, to break the grid. The real war isn't being fought with guns or laws, it's a war for your frequency. And if that's true, then the most radical thing you can do, the most dangerous thing you can do, is raise your vibration. Refuse to resonate with fear. Tune out the noise, disconnect from the narrative, and listen, deeply, to your own internal frequency. Because somewhere, beneath the static, you'll hear something ancient, not a signal, not a warning, a memory of who you were before the grid, and that might be exactly what they're trying to keep you from remembering. Take everything you think you know about Earth's past, its origins, its ancient peoples, its civilizations, and prepare to throw it out. Because the deeper you dig, the more obvious it becomes. History has been edited, not corrected, not revised, but strategically scrubbed, manipulated, and distorted, not by accident, but by design. We've been handed a timeline, a clean, linear story where human civilization began around 6,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, followed by Egypt, Greece, Rome, and eventually the modern world. It's neat, it's tidy, it fits in textbooks. But there's just one problem. The evidence doesn't match the story. Start with Göbekli Tepe, a megalithic site in modern-day Turkey. It's older than the pyramids, older than Stonehenge. It dates back over 11,000 years, completely shattering the idea that hunter-gatherers couldn't build monumental architecture. The stone circles are aligned with celestial bodies. The carvings tell a story of complex symbolism. And then, mysteriously, it was buried on purpose, not destroyed, not abandoned, carefully hidden, as if the builders didn't want future civilizations to find it. But Göbekli Tepe is just the beginning. There's Pumapunku in Bolivia, where blocks of andesite stone, harder than steel, were carved with machine-like precision and fitted together without mortar. Each piece fits so perfectly that not even a razor blade can slide between them. According to conventional historians, this was done with stone tools, but engineers disagree. There are no chisel marks, no evidence of quarrying. Just impossibly clean angles, as if the builders had lost technology, or technology we never had. And then there's the Sphinx, officially dated to around 4,500 years ago. It sits in front of the pyramids of Giza. But geological evidence tells a different story. The heavy water erosion on the Sphinx's body suggests it was carved at a time when Egypt was experiencing heavy rainfall, something that hasn't occurred since the end of the last ice age, over 12,000 years ago. That means the Sphinx may predate every known civilization, which begs the question, who built it, and what else did they know? That leads us into the heart of the conspiracy, the idea that there was once a global ancient civilization advanced in science, astronomy, energy, and spirituality, and that it was erased from our records. Legends around the world all speak of a golden age, Atlantis, Lemuria, Hyperborea, different names, same story, a civilization that soared to great heights, then fell in a cataclysm. Plato wrote of Atlantis as a powerful naval empire destroyed in a single day and night of earthquakes and floods. The Mahabharata describes flying machines, energy weapons, and a war that scorched the earth. Indigenous oral traditions, from the Hopi to the Dogon, speak of star beings, sky cities, and knowledge passed down by visitors from above. But the modern academic world dismisses it all as myth. Why? Because accepting it would mean rewriting everything. It would mean admitting that history is not a straight line, but a cycle, that humanity may have risen to incredible heights long before we were taught to read or write. And worse, it would mean confronting the possibility that someone doesn't want us to remember. There are clues hidden in plain sight. Ancient maps, like the Peary Reyes map, drawn in 1513, depict Antarctica without ice, something we supposedly didn't discover until the 1800s, and something impossible to map unless someone saw it before it was frozen over 6,000 years ago. There are underwater cities like Dwarka in India, submerged beneath the sea with roads, walls, and temple-like structures. These ruins are dated at 9,000 years old, yet no textbooks mention them. Why? Because they don't fit the story. And there are impossibly old artifacts like the London hammer, a hammer encased in 400-million-year-old rock, or the Antikythera mechanism, an ancient Greek computer capable of predicting planetary alignments. These aren't just anomalies, they are evidence that our species is either much older than we're told, or that someone else walked this planet before us. The suppression of this knowledge isn't accidental. In fact, many believe it's the result of a deliberate effort by secretive organizations, priesthoods, and elite groups who have maintained a hidden version of history for thousands of years. The Vatican archives, for example, contain miles of locked documents inaccessible to the public. What's inside? Forgotten books, ancient blueprints, records of civilizations erased from the timeline? We may never know. Even modern archaeologists face threats. Scholars who challenge the mainstream narrative often lose funding, tenure, or are ridiculed into silence. Why? Because controlling the past means controlling identity. If you can make a people forget who they were, you can control who they become. And perhaps most disturbing of all, this isn't just about the past, it's about the future. If there was an ancient civilization that harnessed free energy, anti-gravity, or interdimensional travel, where is that knowledge now? Some believe it's been hoarded, kept by the few for their own use. That remnants of this technology power secret programs, hidden underground facilities, or even reverse-engineered crafts. That while the world fights over oil and data, the real power lies in forgotten physics, energy derived from the Earth itself. Tesla believed it. So did Walter Russell. So did the builders of the pyramids, the ziggurats, the temples of Angkor. But their knowledge wasn't just lost. It was buried. And if you follow the clues long enough, you reach a single, disturbing question. What if the fall of the ancient world wasn't natural? What if it was taken down, on purpose? Many believe that cataclysms like the Younger Dryas event, roughly 12,000 years ago, were not random acts of nature, but the result of cosmic warfare, weaponized weather, or planetary resets triggered by external forces. Perhaps the remnants of that war still echo today, in our myths, our ruins, and our dreams. So what does this mean for you? It means that beneath every myth is a clue, that history is not just something you read, It's something you've been taught to forget. And the more you remember, the more the illusion begins to crack. Because if Earth was once home to a civilization far more advanced than we can imagine, then it means humanity isn't evolving for the first time. It's recovering, trying to remember who it was before the reset. And as you'll see in the next chapter, the reset may be coming again. What if humanity isn't standing at the beginning of its journey, but at the end of a cycle that's happened before? One where civilizations rise, reach incredible heights, and then, without warning, vanish, erased, wiped clean by cataclysms so vast and so deliberate that only the myths remain. Because if you really start to follow the trail, through ancient texts, lost cities, and geological evidence, there's a haunting pattern. Earth isn't just a planet that experiences disaster, it's a planet that gets reset. Start with the Younger Dryas event, a sudden global freeze that occurred around 12,800 years ago. In geological terms, it was a blink. Temperatures around the world plummeted. Megafauna died off. Floodwaters surged as ice sheets melted at breakneck speed. Entire ecosystems collapsed. Mainstream science says it was likely caused by a comet or asteroid impact. But ancient legends from cultures around the world suggest something else: a great flood, a fiery rain, or a war between gods that scorched the skies and shook the earth. The flood story isn't unique to the Bible's Noah. Nearly every ancient culture has one. The Sumerians, Babylonians, Mayans, Hindus, Greeks, and even Aboriginal Australians all describe a global deluge, a catastrophic event that ended an age and forced humanity to start again. But why would this story echo across the globe if it wasn't based on something real? And here's the kicker. Many of these accounts speak not just of survival, but of a warning. A message that this would happen again. But what if these resets aren't just natural disasters? What if they're engineered? That's where the theory gets dark. Some researchers believe the Earth goes through artificial resets, that some intelligence, either terrestrial or not, steps in when humanity advances too far, too fast. Whether it's ancient gods, extraterrestrial custodians, or even a shadowy breakaway civilization pulling the strings, the theory is the same. Humanity is allowed to rise only to a point, then it's forced back to zero. Look at the signs: Great Flood, the fall of Atlantis, the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, the extinction of the dinosaurs even. These aren't isolated incidents. They're part of a pattern of extinction and renewal, a cosmic cleansing ritual, if you will. And according to some ancient calendars, we're due for the next one. The Mayan long count calendar famously ended on December 21st, 2012. People joked about it back then, expecting the world to explode or vanish overnight. But what if the date wasn't a prediction of instant death, but rather the end of an age, a marker, the beginning of the final countdown? Since 2012, the planet has seen record heat waves, unprecedented floods, global disease outbreaks, increased seismic activity, and rising polar instability. It's almost like the Earth is stirring, preparing to shift again. And this isn't just theory. The magnetic poles are shifting. That's not speculation. It's measured science. The North Pole is moving faster than ever recorded, drifting towards Siberia. Earth's magnetic field is weakening at an accelerating rate. Scientists fear this could lead to a geomagnetic reversal, where the North and South poles swap. This has happened before, and during those times radiation levels on Earth surged, species died off, and continents were rocked by violent shifts. Some believe this may be linked to the reset cycles we keep finding in the past. Then there's the concept of the solar killshot, a massive solar flare or coronal mass ejection, CME, so powerful it could fry modern technology in seconds. NASA and NOAA both acknowledge this risk. If it happened, satellites would fall, power grids would collapse, and digital infrastructure would vanish. Civilization would be thrown back into the 1800s overnight. It wouldn't require war, no bombs, no EMPs, just one pulse from the sun. And what's strange, ancient texts from India, Sumeria, and even Native American tribes speak of blinding light from the sky that turned day to night and burned the earth in an instant. So why aren't we prepared? Because maybe we're not supposed to be. That's the chilling part. Maybe, just maybe, some part of this reset mechanism is designed to catch us off guard. Not to punish, but to contain. Because if humanity truly reaches its potential, if it unlocks free energy, consciousness mastery, or interdimensional travel, It could threaten a larger balance, one that's been maintained for millennia, and every time a civilization got close, it was silenced. Let's talk about Atlantis. Plato described it not as a myth, but as a historical account passed down from Egyptian priests. An island nation of immense power, advanced knowledge, and cosmic connection. But its downfall wasn't natural. According to Plato, Atlantis fell because of its arrogance, its misuse of power. It was destroyed in a single day and night. No survivors. Nothing left, except the echoes of its story across the globe. Could this have been the last Great Reset? A deliberate removal of a civilization that broke the rules? Some theorists even believe we've had multiple Atlantises, that every few thousand years, when humanity becomes too advanced, it's pushed back. The survivors start over, often in isolated locations, becoming the seeds of the next world. That's why ancient Egypt seemed to appear out of nowhere, why Sumerians suddenly had written language, math and astrology, because they weren't starting from scratch. They were inheriting fragments of a forgotten age. And what about now? We live in a world run by algorithms, ruled by invisible money, and increasingly disconnected from the Earth. We build higher towers, launch more satellites, and play with forces we barely understand. AI, quantum computing, gene editing, particle collisions. Is it advancement or hubris? Are we touching knowledge once considered forbidden? Because if past resets were triggered by technological arrogance, are we repeating that same mistake? Whistleblowers from Black Ops programs have hinted at something alarming, that governments and secret societies are already preparing for another reset. Underground bunkers, seed vaults, off-planet escape plans, they're not conspiracy. They're documented. The elite are not planning to stop the reset. They're planning to survive it. And here's the most disturbing part. They won't tell us. Why would they? Panic would destabilize economies, governments, and social order. So instead, we get silence. Or worse, distraction. And while the public argues over politics and trends, the clock ticks forward. Because if history is any guide, the next reset won't be gentle. It won't be a slow decline. It will be sudden, catastrophic, and absolute. So the question is not whether Earth has been reset before. It has. The real question is, are we next? And as the signs grow clearer, the storms stronger, and the systems more fragile, there's only one thing left to ask. What comes after? If everything were wiped out tomorrow, governments, power grids, internet, history, who would survive? More importantly, who would be ready to rebuild? This isn't just the stuff of sci-fi thrillers or doomsday preppers hiding in bunkers. It's a very real scenario, and some believe it's already been planned, structured, and even scripted. Because when you look beneath the surface, a chilling picture begins to emerge. Not everyone is meant to survive the next reset. Only a chosen few. And they may already be preparing to inherit the Earth. Start with the bunkers. They're no longer just eccentric billionaire fantasies. From the global seed vault in Svalbard, buried deep in an Arctic mountain, to the military-grade shelters beneath Denver International Airport and the rumoured underground cities scattered across North America, Asia and Europe. There's growing evidence that governments and elites have long been preparing for something massive. But what's truly disturbing isn't just that these shelters exist, it's who they're for. Not for you, not for the average person. They're for world leaders, billionaires, scientists, and select military personnel. In other words, the architects of the new world. And here's where it gets dark. These preparations aren't just about survival, they're about control. In a post-reset world, all existing power structures would collapse. Governments, laws, borders, financial systems, all gone. What's left? A vacuum. And the first to emerge from it will have the power to write new rules, claim new territories, and essentially build a civilization from scratch. Imagine being the first to re-establish banking, communication, or even agriculture after the fall. That's not just survival, that's ownership. But the question is, what would they build? That's where the idea of a pre-scripted blueprint comes in. Whistleblowers, former intelligence officers, and even declassified documents hint at something called the Continuity of Government, COG, plan. On paper, it's designed to keep the US government running after a catastrophe, but insiders claim it goes far beyond that. COG includes contingencies for post-catastrophe societal engineering, complete with new systems of governance, communication protocols, and a heavily monitored population structure. It's not just about picking up the pieces, it's about restarting the game with new rules, rules that benefit the few. And it's not just America. Russia, China, and several European nations have similar programs, each with a common theme: centralized control, limited access to resources, and digitally tracked citizens. If you think today's surveillance is invasive, imagine a world where every move you make is monitored from the moment you're re-invited into society, where acceptance into the new system requires biometric verification, behavioral compliance, or even genetic screening. Now take a step back and look at what's already happening. Digital currencies are replacing cash. Facial recognition is embedded in daily life. AI is monitoring behavior on social media, in cities, in workplaces. Censorship is becoming normalized, and people are being conditioned to accept increasing control in exchange for safety. It's as if the world is being gently guided, slowly nudged, into a pre-reset prototype where the systems are already in place for what comes after. And maybe that's the point. Because some believe the reset isn't just a natural disaster waiting to happen. It's a controlled demolition, a collapsing of the old world to usher in a new, more manageable one. One where humanity's wild, unpredictable nature is tamed. One where history, culture, and truth are rewritten or erased entirely. This brings us to the concept of the vaulted knowledge, a theory that a massive archive of ancient information is being hidden from the public. From the Vatican's secret library, rumoured to house texts that predate the Bible, to underground chambers in Tibet, Egypt, and the rumoured library beneath the Sphinx, whispers of forgotten history keep surfacing. Some believe this knowledge includes free energy systems, dimensional gateways, or even the blueprints of past advanced civilizations. Why keep it hidden? Because in a post-reset world, whoever controls the knowledge controls the future. And that brings us to the most unsettling idea of all. Maybe we've been reset before, and maybe the same few always survive. What if the elite bloodlines of today, the world's most powerful families, aren't just rich, but are the descendants of previous reset survivors? Families who were given access to ancient knowledge, secrets of rebuilding, and the power to shape civilization in their image. Could that explain why their wealth never disappears, their influence never fades, and their histories always seem to survive every war, every crash, and every collapse? Look at the symbols. Obelisks, pyramids, sun wheels, and all-seeing eyes appear in architecture and government emblems worldwide. Are they remnants of previous ages, or markers, silent signatures left by the few who rebuilt civilization last time? A way of saying, we were here, we survived, and we rule again. It might sound like a fantasy, but ask yourself, why are we always told history is linear? That we evolved slowly from cavemen to skyscrapers? What if the truth is cyclical? What if humanity isn't advancing, but recovering? What if we're only climbing back up the ladder again and again, never realizing that we've stood at the top before, and we're knocked off? And what if this time, they're planning to take the ladder away completely? Because here's the final twist. Some believe that after the next reset, the goal won't be to restore the world as it was, but to create a new type of human society entirely, one where digital consciousness, AI governance, and synthetic biology replace what we now call humanity. A post-human world, where memories of old Earth are erased, and those who remain are reborn into a tightly controlled reality they never chose. A synthetic utopia, for them, a digital prison, for us. So the real question isn't just what happens after the reset, it's who's already writing that future? And are you part of the story, or just a forgotten chapter? Somewhere beneath the layers of modern history, between crumbling mythologies and erased texts, lies a story too massive to fit into any textbook. A story that suggests humanity has not just evolved, but has been interrupted. And maybe, just maybe, there was a time when we reached heights far greater than what we know today, only to be brought down by something so powerful it left no trace, except the secrets we weren't meant to find. Start with the architecture. How do you explain the precision-cut granite blocks of the Great Pyramids weighing over 70 tons, placed with mathematical perfection in an age supposedly lacking wheels or cranes, or the megalithic walls of Sacsayhuaman in Peru, stone blocks carved with such complexity that not even a blade can fit between them, still standing through earthquakes modern buildings couldn't survive. Who built these? And how? Mainstream historians call them primitive. But the evidence doesn't lie. Across the globe, we find structures from thousands of years ago that seem to defy modern understanding. Temples aligned to star constellations with laser-like accuracy, underground tunnel networks stretching for miles beneath continents, and massive city ruins submerged beneath oceans, like the Yonaguni Monument off Japan. These are not anomalies. They're breadcrumbs, left behind by a civilization advanced in ways we've barely begun to understand. Now let's talk energy. Ancient texts from Egypt to India describe what sounds eerily like wireless power systems, echoing the very experiments of Nikola Tesla, who himself claimed he was trying to rediscover what the ancients already knew. The Baghdad battery, dating back 2,000 years, hints at electrical knowledge long before Benjamin Franklin. And in the Dendra Temple of Egypt, carvings depict what appears to be giant light bulbs, not metaphorical but literal devices wired to something. Could these have been illustrations of forgotten tech? And if so, where did it go? That's where things get sinister. Time and time again, those who come too close to unlocking these ancient technologies, those who ask the wrong questions or connect the wrong dots, tend to vanish from public discourse, their work discredited, their discoveries labelled pseudoscience. Tesla died penniless and alone, his research confiscated by US authorities. Wilhelm Reich, who claimed to harness a universal energy called orgon, was imprisoned and had his lab destroyed. And then there's Stanley Meyer, who invented a car that ran on water. He died suddenly after a meeting with investors, and his tech disappeared. Coincidence, or part of a larger effort to keep humanity from reclaiming the power it once had? And it's not just inventions. Entire histories have been scrubbed. The Sumerians, the world's oldest known civilization, described sky gods who descended in flying machines, gave them knowledge and ruled for thousands of years. These beings, the Anunnaki, are often dismissed as myth. But what if they were real? What if early humans were visited, or perhaps engineered, by something far more advanced? What if humanity's entire origin story, from Adam and Eve to modern science, is a mashup of what really happened, filtered through time and censorship? Even in modern religious texts, the clues are hiding in plain sight. The Book of Enoch, removed from the Bible, describes a race of watchers who descended to Earth, taught humanity forbidden knowledge, weaponry, astrology, seduction, and were punished for it. Sound like myth, or does it sound like an intervention? And why was this book removed from religious canon? Because it doesn't fit the controlled narrative, or because it says too much? Fast forward to today, we're told we're at the height of human technology, that we've never been smarter. But ask yourself, if humanity were wiped out tomorrow, how much of our modern tech would be recoverable without fossil fuels, microchips, or satellites? Could we rebuild the internet? Could we recreate planes, phones, or even plumbing? The truth is we're standing on a digital cliff, and if we fall, there's no easy way back. But what if someone else already fell and left clues for us to follow? And here's the kicker. Some people believe those clues aren't just old. They're deliberately hidden. Take Antarctica. Once thought to be a barren wasteland of ice, it's now the subject of endless rumours. Hidden pyramids, lost cities beneath the ice, magnetic anomalies. High-profile figures like John Kerry, Buzz Aldrin, and Russian patriarch Kirill have visited the continent under secretive circumstances. Why? What's under there? And why do satellite maps of Antarctica blur out massive sections, or look at Mars? NASA's rovers have photographed what look like ancient ruins, obelisks, and even carvings in the rock that resemble faces or structures, dismissed as pareidolia. But when you compare them to Earth's oldest sites, the similarities are uncomfortable. Could we be looking at the remnants of a previous civilization, one that fled, or one that seeded life here? That brings us to the theory of cataclysmic resets, the idea that Earth has undergone massive destruction events, erasing civilizations and rewriting life. Ancient records, from the Mayan Popol Vuh to Indian Vedic scriptures, speak of suns that rose and fell, ages of men destroyed by fire and water, and worlds before ours. Geological evidence backs this up. Sudden climate shifts, impact craters, unexplained radioactive zones, and even massive underground cave systems that could have sheltered survivors. And here's the most provocative idea of all. What if this is a cycle? What if human history isn't linear, but circular? Rise, fall, rise again. But every time, the knowledge is lost, or worse, suppressed. Not because it's too dangerous, but because it's too empowering. Because if we truly understood what we're capable of, we wouldn't need governments, banks, oil, or centralized control. We wouldn't fear collapse. We'd be prepared. And that kind of freedom, that kind of independence, it's terrifying to those who seek to rule. So the real question is this: why don't they want us to know? Why keep our origins a mystery? Why erase our past? Why label anyone who digs too deep as a conspiracy theorist? Because maybe the truth is too destabilizing. Maybe it would break the carefully constructed illusion that we're the peak of evolution, the chosen generation of progress, when in fact, we may be nothing more than amnesiac survivors, stumbling through ruins we didn't build, following rules we didn't write, and repeating a story we were never meant to remember. But some are remembering. The researchers, the whistleblowers, the fringe historians, they're connecting the dots, and the picture that's forming is shaking the foundations of everything we've been told. And maybe, just maybe, the final piece isn't something new, maybe it's something ancient, waiting to be rediscovered. So now you've seen it all, or at least enough to start asking the questions that most people avoid. The story we've been told about humanity's past is neat, polished, and full of convenient blanks. From cave-dwelling hunters who slowly evolved into modern civilization, to kings and empires rising and falling in a straight line of progress. That's the official version. The one taught in schools, the one promoted in museums, but underneath that version is something deeper, something messier, something buried, and the more you dig, the more it starts to unravel, because history doesn't lie, but the people who write it do. All around us are signs that we're not the first advanced civilization to walk this planet, and probably not the last. The ruins left behind, massive stone structures, perfectly aligned to stars, built with engineering techniques we still don't fully understand, are too advanced for the timelines they've been assigned. The mythologies of every ancient culture, from the Sumerians to the Hopi, speak of sky gods, lost ages, and cataclysms that wiped everything clean. The scientific data, from unexplained DNA anomalies to magnetic pole shifts, backs it up. And the forbidden discoveries, those inconvenient artifacts that disappear from public view or get labelled hoaxes before they are even studied, hint at a much bigger story, one that no one in power wants told. Why? Because truth is dangerous, not just to governments or religions, but to entire systems built on control. If people believed they came from greatness, from a lineage of powerful creators who harnessed energy, mapped the stars, and possibly even left this planet, then they wouldn't settle for what they're given today. They'd demand more. They'd start looking inward. They'd challenge authority. And maybe worst of all, they'd stop being afraid. Because fear is the glue that holds this illusion together. Fear of the unknown. Fear of collapse. Fear of asking questions that might not have comfortable answers. But here's the thing. Every breakthrough in human history started with someone refusing to accept the story they were told. Someone who looked at the impossible and said, "What if?" Maybe that someone is you. Because once you open your eyes to these possibilities, once you see the patterns, the cover-ups, the suppressed discoveries, you can't unsee them. You realize that we're not at the top of the ladder. We're just climbing back up. And maybe the top isn't some future we have to invent. Maybe it's a memory we have to recover. So now the question becomes, what do we do with all this? Do we shrug and say it's just conspiracy, just coincidence? Do we wait for the next documentary to confirm what we already feel in our gut? Or do we start digging deeper, thinking sharper, connecting the dots ourselves? Because the pieces are all there. And the past, our true past, isn't just a mystery. It's a map, one that could lead us not only to where we came from, but where we're going next. And trust me, that journey is just beginning.